This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to a spectacular episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 192. On today's episode, look, guys, we put a fantastic rundown together for you. We put a great show together. But, Doc, I think we just throw it out the window. After what we witnessed on Friday night and what we were able to live through on Friday night, I think we take this entire show we put together, this entire rundown, we throw it out the window, and let's just jump right into it. Doc, we had CM Punk show up on AEW.
Yes.
It was the worst kept secret in the business. We've been waiting for it for years.
7.
We've been kicking around when he might show up and what show he might show up at. And Friday night on AEW Rampage, he showed up.
Yes.
The man, the myth, the legend, the king is back, and CM Punk is all elite. What did you think about this man's entrance?
Yes, because obviously when you sent it and we were going to discuss and plan this show, we were like, okay, we got SummerSlam preview. Let's break down the shows. But then once CM Punk came back, we were like, okay, yeah, we're going to talk about CM Punk because that was sweet. And we're going to break it all down from our reaction to whether it should have been a bigger surprise, from some potential angles he's going to get into, what kind of wrestler he's going to be in. We're going to break it all down. So if you're a CM Punk fan, this is the podcast for you. If you're some sports site that doesn't even know what CM Punk is, listen to this podcast. We will tell you exactly why this was so spectacular. Because it was awesome. Because of the fact that, and whether you agree or not, we all knew it was coming. The hints were dropped. They, in essence, did everything. AEW, Tony Khan, and all the promotion did everything but say CM Punk is coming. So, obviously, if you're a fan of wrestling and you follow the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, I tweeted out like early in the morning, 10:01, make sure you watch, tagged all the great wrestling insiders here in Detroit, and said, you know it's coming, it's coming. So it made it, for me, spectacular because it was anticipation. Now, my thing would be, do you do it in segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, at the end, lights out? Dude, it was perfect. And for me, the manner in which they did it was flawless. The announcers just let the scene set itself. CM Punk took his sweet-ass time. He went into the crowd, the music, the pop. It was perfect. There was nothing different I would have done in any way with this reveal. It was great. The hometown crowd showed him love. He looked like he was embracing what he knew he deserved after 7 years away. That's CM Punk, a 42-year-old CM Punk, I think now is more measured, understands the moment. The pipe bomb references was amazing. It could not have gone any better. I mean, most people online said if they just had CM Punk sit in the ring and bloviate for an hour, we would have all been gripping and listening to every word, because he's just one of those people that you want to look at and listen to. And his words, even though obviously wasn't scripted, flowed perfectly. It went into the angle that he's going to be in, and he talked about reasons. So for me, it was A+. I loved it. I had goosebumps. So obviously I taped it, watched it again, rewatched it, watched all the reactions online, spent near an hour and a half just all on CM Punk, looking at all facets of it. If you can tell my excitement, I loved it. I could not have seen anything that you could have done better other than just at a random time. But for me, that presentation, letting everybody know, look, something big's going to happen. Wait for it. It just made, like, I was texting the group, 9:20. Okay, man, we're an hour
You
away.
had the countdown going.
Dude, I was excited because you knew something cool was going to happen, and it lived up to it. And that's what makes us wrestling fans. And man, cuz that was awesome. It was well needed. Look, the video got 1.5 million views in an hour. So it's not secret anymore. CM Punk is a draw. Arguably, 7 years away, comes back, is the number 1 or number 2 guy in the entire wrestling landscape. And it's awesome to see CM Punk's back, baby.
And look, this was one of those things where you can tell the fans were into it. Like that Chicago stadium where they were at was absolutely lights out. You talked about the video that went viral. There was a fan who was in tears as they panned to this fan. I was watching with my girlfriend. Now, mind you, my girlfriend has no idea who CM Punk is. She wasn't a wrestling fan then. All she knows is that I told her, I was like, look, something special is going to happen. There's this guy who's coming back. And she was like, well, how old is he? How long has he been away? I was like, I don't know. It's been close to 10 years. I was like, he's 40 something. I was like, but he's the biggest deal in wrestling. And even she got hooked in. And like I said, she's not a wrestling fan. That's how you know that this is the guy. This is the guy in the industry, and you're right. He is much more measured. He's much more, I guess, adult about the situation. This was my biggest concern with CM Punk, because when he left wrestling, there were things that he did that were on the borderline of being very immature. But I think he has come back a much different person. And he talked about it in his promo about how he had to get away from the place that made him sick. And I thought there were a lot of measured shots at WWE. There were gratitude extended to Ring of Honor in his opening promo. I thought it was all fantastic. Now, some of the things that are coming out about him coming back to AEW. Turns out he's been in contract talks for well over a year and a half with AEW. And this is something that you and I were discussing in the group message last night about how much money you think he's making and what do you think his deal is. I don't have any details on what his actual details are for his contract, but what I do know is it's not a part-time deal. It's a full-time deal. This is a long-term deal. So this is going to be a couple of years. It sounds like after Brody Lee passed, CM Punk gained a lot of faith in AEW in the way that they were able to handle things, in the way that they were able to present things. And it sounds like he wanted to come back and he wanted it to be much more of a organic setting and much more of an organic situation. He talked about it. He didn't script any of his promo. He just came out there and he just talked. He sat down in the middle of the ring like he did with his pipe bomb promo, and he just kind of let it rip. And I think he is in a place where he's going to get the monster push. Like TNT and TBS is so behind pushing this guy. I mean, he already has an ice cream bar out, which again, pew pew, shot at WWE. So I think he is in a good place. I think he has all the momentum. He's already called out his first guy, and he is there to make stars. This is something we talked about with Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy wanted to go to AEW because he really wanted to help make stars. And I don't think Matt Hardy has necessarily had the dramatic impact that he's wanted to have on some of these guys, but there's a reason why you see guys like House Party in premier matches. There are reasons that you see guys like the Bunny, and you see girls like the Bunny, and you see guys like the Blade in premier matches. It's because Matt Hardy's having that effect. I think CM Punk going back to AEW has that effect. He's already called out a guy like Darby Allin, and in our group message, Kenny called it out. Kenny said, hey, they're going to strap a rocket pack to Darby Allin's back, and this is a way you do it. You set him up with a guy like CM Punk. And I thought it was special. I thought it was fantastic. The thing that I really thought was cool was a lot of his merch, a lot of his imaging, he got to keep all of that when he left WWE. That's all in AEW now. So like if you had any of those taped fists that are in necks, you had any of those, you can still wear those because that's still his stuff. You know, his theme song, when it hit, you all knew. Like, I don't know about you. And like I said, this was the worst kept secret in the industry. We've been talking about this for weeks. So when they opened, and I was like, I don't know if they, just like you, I don't know if they open with this. I don't know if they close with this. I don't know if this is somehow sandwiched in the middle. But they opened with it, and they gave him a solid 20 minutes to do his thing. And I thought it was great. And I did not have the reaction I thought I was going to have. I thought I'd be much more hyped, almost like when Rhea Ripley won the NXT Women's Championship. Like when she beat Shayna Baszler for that, like I was all over the place, and I was so excited. With this, we expected it. But when it happened, it was still the coolest thing of the evening. This was the best thing in wrestling this week. Like I said, we put together a good show. But anything from Monday Night Raw, anything from NXT, anything from SmackDown, anything from Dynamite just pales in comparison to what we got for approximately 17 and a half minutes on Friday night when AEW just unveiled the curtain and let CM Punk come out there and just talk to us. And I thought it was the coolest thing. And if you're a wrestling fan, those are the nights that you live for. And I have a question for you, because you and I are so in the know, and we have to be to do this podcast. We've been doing this podcast. I did the math. We've been doing this podcast for over 4 years. We've been doing a wrestling segment on some type of broadcast on this network for a little bit over 5. Because if you remember, wrestling became a segment on the Doc and Jock podcast where we'd fit it in because we knew people wanted to hear it. And then we developed it into its own show. So we've been doing wrestling on this network for over 5 years now. And CM Punk has been retired for over 7. I think this was the coolest moment. And I feel like it was a little bit tarnished because we have to be so in the know. It takes away that surprise. It takes away that pop. And I don't know if you felt that, but I felt that this was the one time that we've been doing this over 5 years where I wish I didn't know as much, where I could just go into it almost blind and just sit and enjoy and embrace it. I don't know if you felt that.
Now, the thing is, though, you're an adult, so you kind of have to put 2 and 2 together. It's in Chicago, big name. You would always think it and things like that. So there's always some, inclination that this dude was going to come back. And it made sense. I mean, you can't defy logic. I mean, you knew that it wasn't something he was going to enter into lightly. And plus 2, here's the caveat. All of 2020, there were no fans. So that, in essence, was always going to eliminate CM Punk from coming back, and it was said as much in there after after Rampage aired. They had a media session, Tony Khan and CM Punk, and it was said there is no way you do CM Punk where he comes back and there's no crowd. So you knew that that's going to take a little bit of time to work out the probably vast number of things that he wanted to explore and question about because he's been burned in the past. So for me, because here's the thing, we've been surprised with Edge, we've been surprised with the various returns of Jericho, John Cena, things like that, because we didn't exactly know. This time, it was done a little bit differently in that they built it to a crescendo like, okay, it's going to happen, right? And then it did happen, and it was absolutely perfect. So I get it because he's the biggest star, and you wanted that natural reaction of like, oh, he just shows up. But if it wasn't going to be that way, a true, real surprise, having it go down like this was really exciting because you had that all-day build. You knew it was coming. Plus, it wasn't a guarantee he was going to show up today. He could have showed up at All Out, the pay-per-view. I mean, they could have had another performer debut, so you didn't know. And plus, they didn't open the show right away with it. They had the announcers, so you had to wait that extra minute, which I allotted for, which was I thought maybe they would do, a recap of some feud or anything like that. But for this debut, I think it was handled differently, worst kept secret. But they didn't promote it. They didn't say, this performer is going to be here. They didn't even hide it backstage. They said that CM Punk was walking around, saying hi, taking all the pictures. So he just wanted to get acclimated, and I think that's where it is that it made it so that it was special just because, bro, it's been 7 years. It's the surprise element in professional wrestling, unfortunately, with 24/7 news, dirt sheets, everybody talking about it. And plus, here's the thing. You can't blame the dirt sheets because this was basically leaked by Tony Khan. He was like the kid. He's like one of us. And that's where maybe you have the legitimate beef is that Tony Khan's like a little kid. And he's like, oh my God, I got something. And then you're like, okay, I'm not going to keep it secret. So he's out there probably like, I inked the deal with CM Punk. He's going to be here. He's going to show up on our ring. And he's probably like getting all excited like, oh my God, this means that we're getting closer to WWE. This could be so much money. This could be so much brand exposure. We're about to go from level, B+ to A- in the world of wrestling. We're going to make so much news. There is no way a guy like that was going to keep it secret. So he probably told 50 million people. And he's like, yeah, keep it on the down low. So there is no way this could have been kept secret because of the sheer dominance and the level of awesomeness that CM Punk will bring to the table. So I know what you're saying. You want to have that kid like, oh my God, here it is. But it just wasn't meant to be. And overall, though, it was perfect, right? 20 minutes. They let him do his own thing. The references to WWE were perfect, and it made sense. He just basically said, I could never go back to WWE. They did me dirty. And in essence, I think he verbalized in the way in which he could that I don't like sports entertainment. I don't like corny gimmicks. I don't like having characters that are portrayed more for kids. This is professional wrestling. Let's treat it as such, and here I am. and he said it eloquently without even having to be in a dissing manner. It was like, I can't go there. I'm here now because this has the chance to be wrestling. And as I was driving in, I thought about it, and my stance was this. It doesn't have to be AEW, WWE. WWE is catered more towards kids. Like, if you just look at how John Cena and Roman Reigns was presented, John Cena's just, getting the crowd into it, talking about 1, 2, 3, talking about the 17-time potential opportunity he's going to have to break a record. And then he rolls up Roman Reigns for a large pop. That's entertaining. That's, that's not what we were looking for. I mean, if you really wanted it to happen, Roman Reigns should have picked up Cena and dropped him and walked out. I mean, you made it gimmicky. Whereas AEW is tailoring their product more toward the fans that like storylines, long-form angles, things that are not as kid-friendly as evidenced by death matches. So it's different, and you can pop in and out to both. It doesn't have to be a feud, but for us, obviously, you approaching 40, me now in my early 40s, it is more appealing to watch AEW because it is more in line with what adults that like professional wrestling would like, and CM Punk is in the mix, and even if he has a good 5-year run from 42 to 47, he's going to rewrite everything going on because there's so many feuds that he could have in 5 years that will just be electric. So it's so exciting, and I think that the first one is a great one. Darby Allin, it's a great first choice, right?
Oh yeah, like that is like I think that's the one that everybody wants to see. And that's the one that everybody's been kind of talking about. Here's some news that I'm just getting right now. One of my good buddies, who's also a huge wrestling fan, is just messaging me this morning saying that, and I missed this if this was the case, so I'm not 100% sure. I haven't been able to verify or double check this, but it sounds like Bray Wyatt was in the crowd last night.
Oh boy.
At Rampage, taking in AEW. Now again, I haven't been able to confirm that. But if that's the case, this is something that we've talked about as well, is Bray Wyatt going to a place like AEW, going someplace else after his contract with WWE has been released. And we've talked about the creative genius that Bray Wyatt is. And you can see with AEW, they treat their wrestlers a little bit different. I think that's part of the reason why CM Punk went there, right? And that's part of the reason why CM Punk had no problem going to this other large wrestling organization. I mean, he's talked about his love for wrestling, and he's talked about doing things more on an indie scene where he has more creative control. You get a creative mind like Bray Wyatt in AEW, and I think it just takes the roof off the place. I think that's part of the reason why CM Punk said, yeah, hell yeah, I will join AEW. You're going to give me some creative control. I'm going to be able to do some creative things. Yeah, I'm all aboard. I'm all in on this. I think that might have been part of the situation here with him coming back, and now Bray Wyatt is to somehow slot in there. And again, can't confirm anything because I didn't see it, but I have a buddy who's really in tune, similar to our buddy Kenny, who's really in tune on a lot of different things, letting me know first thing this morning that took place. I think what this sets up for now is something really interesting because this was the biggest pop, right? We were waiting for CM Punk to show up in AEW. We have been waiting for Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryant, however you want to call him, whatever you want to call him. We've been waiting for him to show up. And I don't think you run it back-to-back weeks, but I think you have a pay-per-view that's coming up, and that might be the biggest pop at that pay-per-view. Do you think we get Bryan Danielson at All Out?
Yeah, I think it'd be great. I think you could kick it off right away with maybe an alliance, maybe even a swerve where if you don't want to harm Darby Allin, Danielson costs CM Punk the win, but it's a great match. So you have a lot of angles with it, or he just shows up and cuts a hell of a promo. So I'm excited for it. It's obviously going to be one of the most watched pay-per-views, and it's going to be in Illinois, right? I don't think it's in Chicago, but I think it's in Illinois.
It's Illinois, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be a hellacious, just a great pay-per-view all the way around, and I think what AEW benefits from is the build-up. They don't have a pay-per-view every single month, night in, night out. They just have it where it's going to be 4 pay-per-views. And look, AEW, even though obviously they're in the business of making money, they're not going to tax these wrestlers. This is a wrestling company that is built up by wrestlers. So you're going to, I mean, it makes sense to do 2 nights of live TV and 4 pay-per-views. I mean, you could extend a career to 50. I mean, literally, if you develop a talent like an MJF, he could wrestle till 50 at that pace, where you just wrestle 2 times a week and things like that. Now, obviously, periodically, they'll probably do mega shows here and there when they're building up the pay-per-views. That would add maybe a couple more shows. But with TV, digital, and the ability to draw, I think right now AEW is poised to have a run and to be around for a long time. So it's just great all the way around. I'm looking forward to potentially Christian Cage again with CM Punk, with potentially, even maybe just a dust up with Sting, Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, Jon Moxley. I mean, the list goes on and on. Hangman Page. It's just going to be great. Now, we have to ask this, though. Does CM Punk come right in and kind of have a Goldberg undefeated streak, or does he have to put people over? It's the biggest star, man. I think you don't do him like WWE does their characters. I think you give him a year where he doesn't lose. He just comes in, wins, gets up there, gets the title, and the guy that he puts over, maybe it's Cody Rhodes. I think that's just the perfect, if we're writing the story a year in advance, CM Punk wins the title, carries it, and the guy that takes it from him that gets the rub is Cody Rhodes. That's the guy that would be believable, have a great match, then have the ability to take the match that he wins against CM Punk and then go forward. That would legitimize Cody Rhodes to where he would need to be, because even though we know he's a top guy in the company, he's portrayed himself as a mid-carder and is taking the very long approach. But I think that
hold on. Can Cody Rhodes win the title? Remember,
I don't care about all that.
That stipulation from
stupid.
Almost 2 years ago.
Yeah. People will forget that, and that's ridiculous. You can't do that. You have to have Cody Rhodes having at some point the AEW Heavyweight Championship. You have to make it, and you have to move Cody Rhodes out of where he's in. It's humble, it's noble, but Cody Rhodes at this point is not mid-card.
And look,
and that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, is that a guy that is a top guy who wants to be in the mid-card.
Yeah. Here's the thing. He's been the guy who has put on the best matches for almost 2 years now that has carried this company. When you have the likes of a guy like Kenny Omega, who has had, on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, he has had 7-star matches. When you have guys like the Young Bucks who are over the top and entertaining, when you have a household name like Sting, you've got a young up-and-coming talent like a Darby Allin. When you have guys up and down this roster who can do spectacular things, and the guy who has basically carried your company for the last 2 years on his back with some of the greatest matches in AEW history. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Chris Jericho here, who is a Hall of Fame wrestler in any organization you want to put him in. When it is Cody Rhodes who is having these matches and carrying your company, and this guy can't get a sniff at your championship title because of a match that he had with a stipulation, it's absolutely bonkers to me. But look, I don't have a problem with what you're saying. I think that is. You have to find a way to kind of undo and retcon history, and wrestling is full of retcons. And I think that is the one thing AEW has tried to shy away from, is retconning people's history. I don't know how they do it, but I agree with you. There is a guy that he could come in and match up with after going on an extended winning streak, winning a title, and then putting somebody else over to really set them up for the future. It would be Cody Rhodes. But I don't know if Cody wants that. I don't know how they do that. I'm not 100% sure. I do want to touch on something that you said, though. And I think this is where AEW gets it so right and WWE gets it so wrong. They do not force feed us pay-per-view matches. They do not cram in every month a pay-per-view. I was going through and I have this running list of all of our shows that we do. And when we go to do a pay-per-view and we go to give our predictions, we keep score and we keep track of who wins what. And I sometimes give WWE way too much credit. I went back, I think, like 5 or 6 shows. And mind you, we didn't do a show or two in the middle of all of that because of our scheduling. And I went back trying to grab the scores for us so we can bring them into this episode. And I give WWE way too much credit. They force feed us these pay-per-views. I only have to go back like 2 shows to grab our tallies from what we've done in the past. And that to me is just poor on WWE's part. I think the way AEW does it, where you have certain big shows every year, that they are happening at this time and that you can kind of plan your schedule around them. Not like with WWE where it's like, oh, cool. Is it end of the month? Do we have a pay-per-view yet? Oh, cool. It's this week. All right, great. I think the way AEW does it is so much better. It makes them feel more special, makes them feel more intimate, makes them feel like there's something that you have to get up for. And I personally, I enjoy that. I think it's much better that way. we've done a ton of talking about what took place last night with CM Punk. To let you know, you didn't miss a whole lot if you weren't checking in on any of the WWE entities. I think the biggest thing to come out of this week was it seems like Edge is going back towards his Brood character. Edge is going a little bit dark. Raw is completely lifeless. Randy Orton and Matt Riddle are the only things that are breathing life into that show. They have now teamed up as a tag team. NXT felt like it was an incredibly flat show. The only thing that I think they really highlighted was the Dragunov and Walter match that's going to be taking place this Sunday. I think the other big thing besides CM Punk that came out of this week was Christian retiring the TNA Championship. Now, with Impact, you usually give us the Impact review. I do want to touch base with you on this really quick. This was the big news coming out of Impact this week. Impact has been running around with 2 championship belts. You've got your Impact title and you've got your TNA Championship. The TNA Championship is the old. That is the title that used to be there when Sting wrestled there, when Hulk Hogan came in and kind of ruined things, and Eric Bischoff kind of ruined things. The TNA Championship is the belt that EC3 won when he was in Impact. They have now retired that, and they are just sticking with the Impact Championship belt. I want to get your thoughts on that.
I think it's perfect. I mean, this is a guy that Christian Cage is somebody that was a staple over there at Impact. I think it's definitely the right move. You don't need 2 heavyweight titles, especially now when you're calling it the Impact World title. The TNT title was sweet, and it has its run, but to retire it respectfully with the promo, I thought was epic. And I think that there's a lot of admiration that the fans had just having that visual of Christian Cage in the ring, talking about his time and talking about the meaning of it. But now it's time for the new era, and you got to move forward. It's the Impact World Heavyweight Championship now, and he's the carrier of it. So you just, it looks sweet. And the one thing, though, that I think people are wondering with Christian Cage now is, why is he with Jungle Boy? Why is he with that crew? What's the meaning behind it? What's that going to do? It was weird when he showed up on Rampage and cut that. And I know people, AEW wants to create new stars and things like that and align them with the veterans, but Christian Cage can just be a main event guy by himself, right? He doesn't need to be with a crew, right?
I think it's more to help put those guys over.
I know,
I think they see a huge future for a guy like Jungle Boy. I think they see a huge future for Jurassic Express as far as them just being an entity and getting the crowd loves them.
Yeah, they do. So, but isn't it more valuable than to just put them in a feud with them and then have them win? I think that's more the way in which the traditional way of getting a rub on to move people over is, okay, let them have what was arguably, for those that are hardcore fans that remember, what was the match that put the 1-2-3 Kid over? He was just some jabroni with one of the ugliest singlets in the history of wrestling. He shows up on Raw in one of the marquee matches, and he takes on Razor Ramon, and everyone's like, okay, this is a squash match, it's a jobber match, and he wins. And what did that do? That was like, wait a minute, WWE doesn't view this guy as a bum. They view him as a potential something here. He just got a huge win. I think that's something you could do with Jungle Boy.
Here's the thing. This is the thing. If you remember, you got to go back and you have to really have paid attention to what AEW does a really good job just giving you little nuggets here and there. And remember, AEW does something totally different than WWE. They give you long-term stories, right? So if you go back multiple episodes, like I don't even know how far back you got to go. If you look at the way Marco Stunt interacted with Christian, Marco Stunt seems to be almost annoyed at Christian at certain points. And Marco Stunt seems to be almost annoyed at all the praise that Jungle Boy gets at certain times. Now, remember, it's very subtle things. It's the way Marco Stunt will look at either Christian or will look at Jungle Boy. There are interactions that Marco Stunt will have with Luchasaurus. There are interactions that Marco Stunt will have with Christian. You have to really pay attention to these things. And like I said, you have to go back multiple episodes to kind of see this and notice this. So I think what you're getting is remember, every great tag team is built to be destroyed. That is just the way tag team wrestling works. So you have these 3 guys where I think heads and tails, Jungle Boy is above everybody else. Luchasaurus is your big man. Marco Stunt seems to sometimes be the forgotten guy. You pair them with Christian, it shines a bigger spotlight on them. Marco Stunt then feels maybe a little neglected, maybe doesn't feel like he's getting the just due that everybody else gets. And I think in the end, that's where you have a turn. That's where you have a bit of a heel turn. And then from there, you can kind of develop another story. So I think it is a form of long-term storytelling by bringing Christian into this mix and then having him work with these guys to shine a bigger light on them, only to have something crazy pop off later. Now, this might be nothing. I might be making all this up, but I remember distinctly on multiple episodes going back, Marco Stunt looking like he was a little bit irritated by some of these other guys. And remember, Marco Stunt's usually the guy who takes the worst of the beatings on the outside, who takes the worst of the beatings in the ring. Marco Stunt's usually the guy who gets put through the ringer. So don't be surprised if for some reason Marco Stunt feels a little bit jilted at some point.
Yeah, so Saturday night is going to be a huge night. You're going to have Ring of Honor's Glory by Honor. You're going to have SummerSlam. Man, it's going to be a fun Saturday night going down, and I think there's going to be a great opportunity to see a lot of great wrestling. Even though SummerSlam, isn't headlined by the biggest thing going on in the world of wrestling, Roman Reigns, John Cena still is something that people are going to pay attention to. Edge is going to be there, and you probably are going to have some response from WWE. I don't know if you paid attention. WWE did take a little jab at Daniel Bryan, which I thought was a little bit low class. But it's in the spirit of Vince McMahon. What happened was Roman Reigns is standing there with John Cena. John Cena's getting in his stuff, and then Roman's getting pissed. And he's like, "What makes you think you can come in here and win? I've defeated everybody for almost a year, and when I'm done with them, WWE doesn't even have use for them anymore." Which obviously is a reference to Daniel Bryan. Everybody knew it. Yeah, it was low key. But man, a year flew by with Roman Reigns as a Universal Champion. I was like, damn, that's a fast year. And then here's the thing.
Hold on, before we move on, do you think I have the feeling that match has the build and it could really become a classic match? Like if they give these guys the time in the ring, and we both talk about how they're a little bit limited in the ring, but if you give them time, I think they can put on a fantastic match.
But they ruined it in one foul swoop. And here's what they did. Roman Reigns ups the ante per se, and he's like, if I don't win, I'm leaving. Okay.
I thought that was stupid.
That was beyond stupid because nobody believed in the first place that Roman was gonna lose. And John Cena, Roman Reigns is not leaving. You could have that swerve, but by adding that, you've now basically told everybody Roman Reigns is going to win. And I think I bet you, we could start off our predictions with that. Nobody in their right mind would predict John Cena knowing that he's going to leave. Everybody knows that. That should not have been something that was revealed, is that he's just here for the summer and probably done at SummerSlam. So in my mind, I thought that was dumb. It wasn't anywhere near the finale that you'd want to see. You need physicality. Having John Cena roll up Roman Reigns for a 1-2-3 was stupid visually and even more stupid creatively. Roman gets pissed at laying on his back. Dude, all you got to do is kind of wiggle your hip and you're out of it. So that's it. It's beyond stupid to see it that way, It should have. Really, in wrestling, it's easy. Roman Reigns picks up Cena. It doesn't go down. Cena tries to pick him up. A couple punches. Refs come in the ring and do it that way. Some physicality, not some fake 1-2-3 roll up that you've been gimmicking for the past 5 minutes. So, for me, no doubt about it. Roman Reigns walks out Universal Champion, and then maybe the next big thing comes out as a debut or something that tells us what's next after. But no way, no how does Roman Reigns lose.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Roman Reigns wins that one. What about the WWE Championship? Bobby Lashley versus Goldberg. I think I know where you're going with this one, and it's got to be Bobby Lashley, right? There's no way Goldberg wins.
Exactly. Goldberg's contract is nearing. This was just, hey, we want to slap Goldberg on a commercial and a poster. Nobody in their right mind believes that it's going to be a situation in which Goldberg wins. Now, there could be a situation if you want to go left and you want to have an answer, okay, and you want to extend the run of Goldberg but not in the ring. You could kick off now the real feud that everybody wants to see in WWE is Goldberg gets disqualified as he realizes that he's going to lose by bringing back Brock Lesnar. And they've been adversaries, they've been that, but then Goldberg can now become the advocate of Brock Lesnar. as a guy that's going to be somebody that's, hey, I've been the ass kicker. I know what you need. You don't need some Weasley mouth talker. You need a guy that's going to just stand there and let you dominate, and nobody will get in your way. And if you want to, if you run that by Bill Goldberg, I think he'd love it. I think he's just perfectly suited to just stand there and look tough, and him and Brock Lesnar side by side has the potential to maybe draw some money. Will they do that? Probably not. They'll just have Goldberg do a spear, look awesome, and then Bobby get pissed and win. You know, on a roll-up.
That would be way too interesting, right?
On a roll-up.
Why would WWE do that?
Exactly. So Bobby Lashley.
All right, what about Bianca Belaire versus Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's Championship?
I would love to see Sasha win it, but I still think it's Bianca. It's her time, man. She hasn't done anything to warrant losing the title. Bianca Belaire.
I agree with you. I think she is the biggest draw on SmackDown right now. Like, I know you got Roman Reigns and he's great. I know you got John Cena and he's great. But when she comes on the screen, she just holds your attention. She is so damn interesting, and I think she does a fantastic job in the ring. I think she's great. Let's get the other women's championship match out of the way here. We've got the Raw Women's Championship. We've got a triple threat match. Nikki ASH, Charlotte Flair, and Rhea Ripley. Who do you see winning this one?
I can't see Nikki ASH keeping the title. I mean, it was cute, but does she carry the company? Does she draw ratings? I mean, you have to have a title change, right? My thinking...
I don't know. I don't know if you do.
I know, that's the crazy part.
This is why I say this, because the fans are really behind her right now.
I know, that's the sick part. But I think that you know, WWE in their infinite wisdom will put it on Charlotte. But I have to believe it's Rhea Ripley. She's the star. She's the one that you got to give this belt to. I mean, because don't you think that you could continue, even if you wanted to, with Charlotte Flair at Survivor Series? You think Nikki ASH keeping the title at a main thing? I mean, you know what? It's WWE. I'll stick with it, but my heart tells me it's going to be taken off, but I'll go with Nikki ASH.
I will go with Nikki as well, and it's just because I feel like the fans are so behind her in WWE. No, actually, you know what? I'm going to go Rhea Ripley in this one. I'm going to change, because we talk about this all the time. You have to have a belt change,
you have
right?
To, right? Yeah.
And I think we're going to have a tag team belt change, and we might have one of the lesser championship belts change, but I think you need one of your bigger belts to change. I'm going to go Rhea Ripley on this. And here's the thing. I could see, and I could make a case for Nikki retaining, but I'm going to go Rhea Ripley in this match. Remember, Nikki doesn't have to get pinned to lose her title in this match.
Right.
Rhea Ripley could take out Charlotte Flair, or Nikki could take out Charlotte Flair and Rhea come in for the pin. I'm going to go Rhea Ripley. Okay. This is what I'll say. Rhea Ripley does not have the steam, does not have the momentum that she had probably a year ago, 2 years ago, when Charlotte ended up taking the belt off her. She's never regained that momentum. And her in-ring work, and I don't know if it's her, I don't know if it's who she's going up against, because remember, when you're in-ring, it takes two to tango. And it just, to me, it feels like the story that she puts on in the ring has not been as good as it should be, or as good as it could be. And again, I don't know if it's her and what she's doing in the ring, or if it's who she's working with. I think you do have to at some point get her away from Charlotte Flair. I'm not sure how you do that, but I'm going to go Rhea Ripley just to be different here. I could make a case for Nikki, and originally going into this, I wanted to pick Nikki, but I'm going to go with Rhea Ripley on this one. Raw Tag Team Championship, AJ Styles and Omos versus Randy Orton and Matt Riddle. I think RK Bro wins this. I think it's a way to kind of break up what you've got going on with AJ Styles and Omos. I think it gets AJ back into that singles competition. I think it's a way to let Omos kind of go on his own a little bit. And I think Randy Orton and Matt Riddle have been the best thing on Raw. So why the hell not give them the belts?
Absolutely. I think that you need some freshness there, and I think AJ Styles in the tag team match is just, it's ridiculous. He needs to be featured a little bit more. It's great. You're helping a young guy out, a big monster, but AJ Styles is not a tag team wrestler. I don't know if they're hiding something where he needs to kind of have more time off, but I know he's a physical wrestler, but AJ Styles just needs to be way, way higher up on the card than a tag team champion.
Agree with you. We've got the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. We've got Jimmy and Jey Uso versus Rey and Dominic Mysterio. If you watched Friday Night SmackDown, Looks like there's some dissension between Rey and Dominic, and it looks like Dominic's maybe getting a little bit too big for his britches. Who do you have winning this one?
It's the Usos, baby. Party up. Champagne wishes, baby.
That's right. I think it's the Usos as well. Don't be surprised if Dominic ends up walking out on Rey at the end of this match. Just putting it out there. It's just kind of how I see it playing out. Now, we've got the United States Championship. We've got Sheamus defending against Damian Priest. I think this is where you help cement a star, and I think Damian Priest wins this.
No doubt about it. The way in which that character could go, it's time for a title, baby.
I agree with you. Edge versus Seth Rollins. We've got this darker, more brooding, and I use brooding as a pun, Edge versus Seth Rollins. I think Edge wins this. How do you feel?
I agree, but obviously my creative side would say, okay, what better way to have Becky come back than to kind of get revenge on Edge by doing something there with that. But yeah, I think Edge at this point in time, Seth Rollins doesn't have as much heat other than that he's a staple, and he's taken a step backwards a little bit in his career, firmly in the mid card, but obviously with high end talent. But yeah, he's going to lose this one to Edge.
Can I give you a little bit of a scenario that might happen? Remember, WWE likes to keep husband and wives together on the same show. Bianca Belaire is on SmackDown. So is Seth Rollins. Don't be surprised if Bianca Belaire beats Sasha Banks and all of a sudden Becky's music hits. Remember, Becky's been in the back. She's been in Gorilla. She's been working her way back to coming back. Don't be surprised if when Bianca Belaire beats Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch's music hits, and that's the new feud. That's the new challenge. Or even if Sasha Banks wins, Becky comes back to reclaim that title. Don't be surprised. Just putting it out there. Might happen, might not happen. I've been gearing up for Becky Lynch for months now. I can't wait for her to come back. All right, Drew versus Jinder. This has been one of the worst builds, and you've had arguably some of the most material to work off of, and you've done absolutely nothing with this. Drew McIntyre versus Jinder Mahal. Shanky and Veer are banned from ringside. You're going with Drew McIntyre, right?
Absolutely. It's just really unfortunate that it gets buried in a card that it could have done a lot better with.
You could have done so much more with this. You want to swerve. Jinder gets a win here. There's a swerve.
Yeah, exactly. There's an upset. Woohoo.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Drew as well. Last match that we've got on this card. Remember, everything is subject to change.
Yep.
Alexa Bliss versus Eva Marie with Dewdrop. We're going both with Alexa Bliss, right?
Absolutely. So obviously, I like it. I think all the marbles, because we are similar, we think similarly. All the marbles will be determined by what happens in the women's championship on Raw.
Match.
Yeah, I like it, and I gotta go with the All-Star, baby. She's gotta win it. She's gotta keep it past SummerSlam. We'll see if they do her dirty and just give her a 1 month reign, treating her like the Miz. I hope not, because that will get me back in it as I'm losing 6-3 in our challenge. SummerSlam will be fun. Me personally, I'm not a fan of doing it on Saturday. It's ridiculous. I think that it's a Sunday staple. NXT should have been on Saturday, and I don't get it. It's just disappointing. I'm not as into SummerSlam, obviously, now as I would have been. It should be a bigger deal. And when you highlight it with Cena and Goldberg, you did it for the money. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully we have some moments. Hopefully WWE does have a response to whatever happened on AEW, but we shall see. All right, cuz, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
Before we get into news and notes, I do want to give a huge shout out, and I want to take some time to recognize the guys who work on that ring crew for WWE.
Yeah.
Do you realize they put on a show in Phoenix last night to only pack it all up and get over to Las Vegas today, build the ring, build the set, and get everything ready for the show this evening? Absolutely bonkers. Those guys do incredible work, and there's no way that they get paid enough. All right. Now news and notes. So AEW's been riding high, and why not ride even higher with the jet flying mainstream baddest dude on the planet? He's won 16 championships, but it's probably closer to 25 if you watch this 30 for 30. It sounds like Ric Flair may be all elite soon. The specifics of his non-compete are not known, but it sounds like Ric Flair may be headed to AEW. Remember, his son-in-law, or soon-to-be son-in-law, Andrade, works with AEW, also works in AAA. this past weekend, we had AAA's Triple Mania, and Ric Flair showed up there. So it sounds like Ric Flair may be headed to AEW. Ric Flair is supposed to be scheduled for, there's this massive event going on with the NWA. Ric Flair is going to be showing up at that as well. And this is a really short news and notes segment. Last one. The Capitol Wrestling Center, the home of NXT, will now be the permanent home of NXT as the contract with Full Sail has lapsed. Now, Capitol Wrestling Center will be getting a bit of a facelift over the next few weeks, so expect what you're viewing on NXT to change a bit. Remember, there are Full Sail changes, and I use Full Sail as a pun again. Look at me, I'm the pun master today. There are monster changes coming to NXT. Not just with the branding, not just with the wrestling that you're going to be getting, not just with how they're going to be doing things in NXT. Everything is getting a bit of a facelift, and everything is changing in NXT. The old NXT that we once grew to love will be much, much different going forward, and it sounds like it's not going to be too great if you're a fan of the old NXT. But the planned renovations include better lighting for the facility. It sounds like WWE felt like it was just too dark. Remember, most of the fans, you can't see them. It's basically like blacked out around the edges. So better lighting, you're going to see more of the fans. Don't be surprised if the ring changes a little bit. I'm not going to anything like an octagon, but it's just going to be, things are just going to be different with their setup. So getting a bit of a facelift there. And that's it for this week's wrestling news and notes. Hopefully SummerSlam is fantastic, and hopefully NXT is great on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be here to review it next weekend. Now, cuz if you have nothing to do, if you got a lot of time to kill, the likes of Mick Foley, Darby Allin, Tony Schiavone, they are going to be in town in Ann Arbor at an event called Astronomicon. You can go on their website, buy a ticket to get an autograph, shoot the breeze for a little bit if you have no time. If you have some free time and you want to get out there. Quick funny story. I'm aware of where Mick Foley's staying, so I tried to call his hotel room. And Slick Hotels, I didn't say I want to talk to Mick Foley. I used his real name. I said, I'd like to talk to I want to call up, the nice lady answered. And I said, Michael Foley's room, please. And she goes, okay. And then she comes back 30 seconds later, and she's like, no problem. I can patch you through as long as you give me the room number. That's the policy. And I'm like, no, you were right there. I thought I was going to hear like a beep, 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 and then he's just going to pick up. I tried. Mick Foley's in town. He's doing the three faces of Foley. Oh, he got here yesterday. You assume Darby Allin will be here today. And also, too, if you're, a fan of movies, Shannon Elizabeth, some those characters that you know and love, they'll be at Astronomicon. So check it out. It might be a fun event. Get to see your favorite wrestler from AEW. More AEW have influence. Mickie James, I know, will be there. So get your AEW on at Astronomicon. All right, cuz, make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Thanks for everybody for tuning in and listening to the most exciting Detroit wrestling podcast out there. We greatly appreciate it on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Again, follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast as we peek into the world of wrestling. Watch along, give us your reaction, and make sure you definitely go back and rewatch that pop. One of the biggest reactions for CM Punk, a legend, and now we get to enjoy him for the next few years and probably have some great matches. Can't wait to see it. September 5th, baby. It'll be all out. Thanks, cuz. We'll talk next week.